Good morning, WFNT.
Hi, good morning. It's Rick Snyder.
Governor Snyder, Jason Cooper here. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us today. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Jason.
Well, last night you gave your sixth State of the State address on the focus largely on water issues here in Flint. How do you think it went? Do you think you were able to convey your message of being sorry and that you want to fix the problem?
Well, I hope so. That was clearly the goal, because I do. And last night was hopefully a good opportunity to have a chance to really speak to the people of Flint in particular and the entire state, to say, here's what happened, here's what we've been doing, here's what we're going to do, and how we can work together to address the damage as best as possible and move forward through this, and also learn lessons about how these are important things that we need to consider for the entire state and learn lessons from that.
Do you think there was talk about trust and regaining trust last night? How do you think you're going to be able to do that? I mean, you've apologized profusely since you were made aware of the problems here. How do you think you can go back winning the public's trust, at least here in Flint?
Well, the most important thing is what we do on the ground with the citizens of Flint. And that's where I hope they're seeing benefits and concern from the National Guards people that are going around, helping distributing water and filters. The Michigan State Police are there. State people have been volunteering to go up and help in Flint. Just the outpouring of support from around the state to show things are getting done. We're also working hard to, do things to help with the kids that were affected. So we'll be looking at what we can do with educational programs, preschool programs, other things that people will actually see they're making a difference in their lives. And then really working hard in the longer term to get the water supply reestablished, where you don't need a filter anymore, where you have water coming out of the tap you can drink.
You also announced last night you would release all your emails from 2014 and 2015. Is that because you feel that there's nothing to hide on your end? A lot of people have talked about when you were made aware of this problem, and you've said when you were made aware of this problem. What do you feel with the releasing of the emails that's going to accomplish?
Well, people asked for that, so that's why I felt important to release my emails regarding Flint for 2014 and 2015. People will see there's not anything that should say I should have figured this out or I knew something. Again, I was very clear that it was September 28th when, on a phone call, I was given the point from both DEQ and the DHHS, the environmental quality people and the health and human service people, that they believe now the data they've been seeing, and this is where I thank Dr. Mona Hanna-Tisha last night and Professor Mark Edwards for their work, because they finally started recognizing that they had done good work and they were right. And that came across September 28th, and then the blood test results from the doctor were confirmed on October 1. And that's why we started taking action on October 2.
Democrats were wearing pins last night saying, what did you know and when did you know it? Do you feel with the release of the emails, the timelines that were given in last night's speech, pretty definitive, also releasing that on the website this morning, that all the timelines, this has been cleared up once and for all, or do you feel that until some of the investigations are concluded by perhaps the Attorney General, the Flint Water Task Force, that you'll still be answering questions about what you knew and when you knew it?
Yeah, well, I feel good. We're releasing a lot of information. I look forward to the investigations because I think that will reaffirm that. So I think that will be helpful in that process. And I would go to the point that, unfortunately, this is being politicized by a lot of people, and that's where you get into these issues of continuing much of that dialogue. But let's let the investigations go through and finalize the answer that there wasn't anything else that I knew, and I look forward to that. The thing is, instead of spending time on that, too, I'd also encourage people to be working hard on the solutions. Because, again, I want to stay focused in on what we can do for the people in Flint on the ground to make the situation more better in terms of dealing with the damage that was done.
You mentioned last night money. I guess we should talk about money right now. $28 million in last night's State of the State address to help with filters, bottled water, and other things. You also talked about the $9 million in October. Yet your detractors will argue that that's probably not enough, and especially when we're looking at a budget surplus this year. You also mentioned in last night's address it wouldn't be the last time you would ask for money for Flint from the legislature, and a new budget process is starting soon. Will there be more in that?
Yeah, there will. And part of this is we're asking about a significant amount of money right now because we understand what specific needs are and what some of those things may cost. So that's why we're starting with this particular number to get the process going. In fact, it's a continuation. Back in October, as I mentioned, when I started learning things, we actually got a $9 million supplemental back then. So we're trying to deploy resources, as we can say, these are important things that we invest in to help with the situation in Flint.
Detractors also looking for more specifics of how that money will be used, and future monies be used. Will just lead pipes be replaced, or you said the study will be done of the infrastructure? Will the entire infrastructure need to be replaced?
Well, that's a challenge we have all across Michigan in terms of lead infrastructure. The priority now is to make sure we're reestablishing the appropriate coatings on the pipes, and then doing extensive testing so that water will be safe to drink and getting it validated by third parties. Because, again, people will be challenged about the credibility of federal, state, and local officials. We need to have third parties looking at this so people can feel good that they're getting the right answers.
I read that the House Appropriations Committee will take up that $28 million first thing this morning. Do you anticipate any issues in getting that funding? For instance, many in the legislature kind of hemming and hawing on your DPS plan, saying that they've bailed out Detroit once and the rest of the state shouldn't be responsible for, continually bailing out troubled cities. So do you anticipate any issues getting that $28 million for Flint?
Well, I would hope not. I mean, I would expect people to be asking, legislators to be asking questions about what the money's going for. Are there measurements and metrics on making sure it's deployed appropriately? Those are the kind of dialogue. And because generally the legislature has been supportive and has done supplementals in the past, again, as early as last October.
I want to talk about the politicizing of the water issue. It seems like the rest of the country is just catching up to this issue, and it's something that I've been talking about for quite some time, and I know we've talked about it in the past as well. Hillary Clinton brought up the Flint water crisis in Sunday night's presidential debate, and you responded to her, as well as some others like Michael Moore and Cher, about this not being the time to politicize this and work on a solution. Can you comment a little further on that?
Well, again, in terms of people spending time on really the past, I appreciate a lot of work is being done on that, but I would hope most of the focus is saying we have a situation that requires additional resources and support for the people of Flint today and tomorrow. And I would hope people would say that should be the priority of this process at this point in time, and then understand that there are good, smart people doing the historical investigations.
Oakland County Executive L. Brooks Patterson, former political columnist Bill Ballinger, on the record as saying the Flint water problem has been vastly overstated. What do you say to those comments?
Well, this is a serious problem. I spent most of my State of the State last night talking about it. So I view this as a priority of mine and a commitment I'm making to address.
A lot of calls I've received recently have been about the water bills and whether or not people should have to pay for contaminated water. And you mentioned something last night in the State of the State address about help for the utilities. Can you explain that a little bit more for our listeners?
Well, we're looking to provide some resources to Flint because of the utility issues there. Again, there's investments that need to be made to make sure that all the proper things are continuing to happen, the right investments are made, and that there's a viable water utility in Flint. So we're looking to help the city of Flint provide those resources. I understand people are having concerns about bills, and that's something that I would hope to have an ongoing dialogue with the mayor and the people in the city of Flint because they run the utility itself. My goal is to say, how do we support the mayor, the city of Flint, and the utilities there so they can be an ongoing success and get better quality water to people.
Mayor Weaver in Washington, D.C. yesterday and today asking for assistance. And, of course, you had an emergency agreed upon by President Obama, but not a major disaster declaration. Any follow-up there from the federal government?
Yeah, we'll be appealing the denial in the one case, and then hopefully we're seeing the federal government move forward with getting coordinating resources to say, with respect to all the departments of the federal government, how can they be participating in the recovery here? So I appreciate that, and I appreciate Mayor Weaver being a good leader about asking for those resources from the federal government.
And do you know the next time you might be meeting with Mayor Weaver or coming to Flint?
Don't specifically off the top of my head. I've been there a couple times in the last week. So I will continue to be up in Flint because, again, it's important to be talking to residents and citizens and understanding their concerns. So I've had good meetings up there, and I hope that continues.
Governor Snyder, we appreciate the time. Look forward to our next conversation with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.